Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sportscaster Dan podcast. I am Dan Lavallo, Magic Johnson, and owner of the New York Knicks. Am I reading that correctly? Well, here it is. The Associated Press, quoting Magic Johnson, is saying if he was going to buy into ownership of another team, and it would be minority ownership, actually, not as a majority owner, but if he was going to buy into another team, and he's part owner in several teams right now, it would be the New York Knicks or nothing. I mean, this is what he told the Associated Press, that the New York Knicks are, quote, the only team I would probably think about. Other than that, I would probably never think about ever being part of another franchise. Boy, that would really be something, huh? Magic Johnson, part owner of the New York Knicks. He gave up his ownership, his stake in the Los Angeles Lakers years ago. Imagine what would happen if he decided to buy a portion of the New York Knicks. Now, he is a partial owner of the Washington Commanders in the NFL, the Los Angeles Dodgers in Major League Baseball, the LA Football Club, LAFC, the Los Angeles Sparks in the WNBA, and esports company Axiomatic. So he's a business guy, and he's been very successful at what he has done. He was successful as a basketball player. He was successful as a brand name, if you will, and now he's a success as an owner, making sure that he buys into franchises that are successful. So here you have it. Now, it isn't as if the Knicks are for sale. The New York Times did a story on Knicks owner James Dolan not too long ago, and he's very focused on what he's doing in Las Vegas with Madison Square Garden Enterprises out in Vegas. So he's very big on that, and I understand it. But what is fascinating to me is he says he enjoys, even though he doesn't like being a team owner, he does enjoy owning the New York Knicks. I believe the New York Rangers are also part of his ownership too. But that said, and it's been an ownership that had its ups and downs. That said, the Knicks, to my knowledge, aren't up for sale, even partial shares. But if they were, Magic Johnson says he would be interested in buying into the New York Knicks. Imagine what would happen if Magic Johnson became part owner of the New York Knicks. By the way, a shout out to the owner, speaking of New York, of the New York Mets, Steve Cohen. If you've been following what happened, the Mets game against the Miami Marlins on Tuesday was postponed. I couldn't believe it, by the way, because there I am looking at the baseball scores after staying up and watching the Yankees beat the Toronto Blue Jays on Tuesday night, 2-0. Again, the kids coming through, as I pointed out in a previous commentary. But then I'm looking and I'm saying the Mets got rained out, postponed, Mets and Marlins. I said, wait a minute, how could that happen? It's not raining. I went on my radar. There was no rain in New York. Well, we all know in this region of the country that we got deluged with rain over the weekend, and the Mets grounds crew forgot to cover the field at Citi Field on Saturday. And so the infield got drenched. And even when they attempted to repair their mistake by covering the field for the rest of the weekend and Monday, it was the infield, that is, beyond playable once they removed the tarp. So you had a situation where you've got the Miami Marlins, who are in the thick of the wild card race, going up against the Mets, who have been eliminated from contention for a while now. You got the Miami Marlins now being forced to play a Wednesday single admission doubleheader at Citi Field. And what did that mean? Well, what it meant was the Marlins pitching staff has now been upended, and their pitcher, who was supposed to pitch on Tuesday, really won't be available to pitch on Sunday, which could be a game involving the clincher, because it'll only be 3 days rest. By the way, hasn't the game changed? Didn't starters always go on 3 days rest? But I digress. Fact of the matter is, the Miami Marlins are now in a situation where their pitching has been put into a tizzy, and they're still in contention, serious contention. This obviously got the Marlins very upset. There were stories emanating in on various platforms that they were just peeved that that field was not ready for the ball game on Tuesday, forcing the Wednesday doubleheader. and perhaps having an impact on the Marlins' schedule the rest of the way as far as qualifying for the playoffs are concerned. But the Mets admitted their mistake. Steve Cohen issued an apology on Wednesday, the owner of the Mets. Steve Cohen also sent out a tweet, again, apologizing for the Marlins, and I believe him. I believe Steve Cohen because why would the Mets want to play a doubleheader on a Wednesday? Single admission doubleheader. That impacts their gate too. That impacts their revenue as well. That was an honest mistake. Somebody made the decision not to cover the infield on Saturday, and by the time they decided to cover it on Sunday with all the rain, it was too late. So as upset as the Marlins were that they could not get that field ready for the game on Tuesday night, you've got to, I say you've got to give kudos to Steve Cohen for admitting that the Mets made a mistake, accepting his apology, and moving on. Mets are faced with a lot of decisions in the offseason. Number one, do they keep Buck Showalter as manager? He'll be in the final year of his 3-year contract. Or with David Stearns coming in to head the operation, will they go out and get Greg Counsell, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the season once the baseball season comes to a conclusion for the Milwaukee Brewers? And who knows, the Brewers could be the last team standing. Imagine that. And don't rule this out. The Brewers are a very good ball club. Would not surprise me at all if the Brewers end up being the world champions in 2023. Would not surprise me at all. And my point is, Greg Counsell right now could end up being the highest paid manager in baseball. And if they win the World Series, there's no question he'll be the highest paid manager in baseball. So a lot of interesting things taking place behind the scenes, particularly when it comes to the Mets. But I just thought it was a classy gesture by the owner of the Mets, Steve Cohen, to issue an apology. And again, what did the Mets have to gain by not playing that game on Tuesday night? It was an innocent mistake. One, I am sure they will try not to repeat. I'll guarantee you there's a review right now about who made this decision, why did it happen. I hope it doesn't affect the head groundskeeper. You hate to see somebody lose their job over this, but still somebody did drop the ball, and it's a situation which is going to be reviewed. But kudos to Steve Cohen. And again, wouldn't it be something if Magic Johnson ended up as a part owner of the New York Knicks? That's going to do it for the Sportscaster Dan podcast. As always, thanks for following me. And be sure to subscribe to my Sportscaster Dan newsletter. I send it out every Tuesday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time to your email box. We don't spam you. Just go to sportscasterdan.com to subscribe.